All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining. Um, yeah, we're going to talk today about how to use non-attorney salespeople in your law firm. Um, we have myself and Ashley. We both run atCause Law Office. Ashley's the managing attorney, and I do the administrative stuff here, oversee the sales, the marketing, all that fun stuff. And then we have Andrew and his wife, Tracy, and they are with Zihmer, right?
Got it.
Okay, good. They're with Zihmer Law. And Andrew also has the Vertex League, which is an amazing group. He does a lot of coaching, a lot of meetings, just absolutely fantastic with growing your law firm. So if you guys are interested in that, you should definitely check him out. He gives tons and tons of good information. And then we have Gary Winter, who is with Lawvex. Gary's firm's out in California. He's absolutely crushing it. Yeah, amazing guy, amazing firm. And all five of us utilize non-attorney salespeople. So we're going to kind of discuss that today and how everyone else can incorporate it, do it ethically, and be successful, get lots of clients, make lots of money, and live the good life. So I guess, why don't we start out with Gary? Why don't you just tell us briefly kind of what your guys' process is, kind of from intake through the sales process, and yeah, just give us a kind of a general overview.
Yeah, testing audio here. Joe, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
All right. I'm on a relatively new laptop, so I haven't used Zoho with it before, so I was kind of making just a little bit out of my element really quick, but glad it's working. And yeah, thanks for having me. Hot topic, and we've been at it for about 2 years, 2.5 years with non-attorney sales. Our just very quick background, our firm is all trust and estates, from planning, administration, probate, conservatorship, guardianship in California. We're 3 offices in Central Cal. We have offices in the Central Valley in Clovis and Madera, and then on the Central Coast in Solvang, Santa Barbara. 6 other lawyers besides myself, and our total head count is 28. We're about 10 years into, this is our 10-year anniversary actually of branding the firm and moving away from my solo practice. So I've been at it for a little while, and like I said, 2 years with the non-attorney sales. So the basic process that we've been using for the last year is leads come in by phone. They'll be picked up by the phone pool, which is our physical front desk reception that we call legal assistants, and they immediately hot transfer to intake coordinators. We have 2 full-time intake coordinators. One is Spanish speaking, one is not. They are not in person, they are fully remote. One is in Florida with you guys, and I think I have another one in California. But those guys are constantly there to grab those calls immediately. And then they will, their sole mission in life is to do the initial vetting for non-qual leads, like out of practice area, conflict of interest check, and just out of jurisdiction, not somebody we can help. And then they'll set within 48 hours, they'll set a call or Zoom with our non-attorney sales guy, Aaron, that we call him Dragon or client coordinator, so that we can get people talking to him as quickly as possible. So we're always trying to make sure that people can visit with him as fast as we can, like within 48 hours. So that's a phone call lead. We also get leads through our website from SEO, organic, and those come in through questionnaire software we've been using called Lawbroker that kind of gives some basic information. And so that when those things pop up, then the intake coordinators are notified, and they'll immediately call that person if they haven't already self-scheduled with the non-attorney salesperson. They have that option. They can actually book an appointment directly with the non-attorney sales guy. And then the same process for other lead channels like Google local services ads or Yelp, or any way that somebody reaches out to us with some kind of an email or online or whatever. The intake coordinators grab it and immediately reach out to that person and try and schedule the non-attorney sales guy. Then once he has
all the consults done by a non-attorney salesperson in your firm?
So for initially, for our like referred, non-referred leads that are cold leads that come in off the internet, everybody talks to him, and he will attempt to engage them for full rep, and he'll get about half, somewhere between 40 to 60%, depending on the month and the practice area. Estate planning is pretty straightforward to be able to engage full rep because we have a very, clear program, fixed fee for the different complexity factors that are there. And he's trained on, walking through those things to sort and say, hey, you'll be a fit for this program, subject to the attorney review, and get a e-signed engagement and an initial deposit. If somebody doesn't engage with him on the call, then plan B is to do a strategy session with an attorney, and that's a paid consultation, $375 to sit down with them, and then the money would just apply to their fee. And then that strategy session for estate planning is like the first plan design meeting.
So if they don't sign up with the non-attorney salesperson, or if they don't pay, then he's trying to get them booked for a paid consultation with the attorney. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Got it. And Andrew, you're doing a lot of the sales, right? I can hear you. Yeah.
Can you unmute me?
Oh, you're muted. No, you're not muted. I can hear you.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So sorry. So yeah. So somebody either can self-schedule with me, but from the sales perspective from the website, or call in, at which point they're just doing kind of that screen of, do they fit estate planning, probate, elder law, to get onto my calendar. So they're really just setting. We then do a 30-minute phone call with me on the estate planning front. And we kind of moved to this two-part sale a while ago that has worked really well. So we move into design and then implementation. And so what I'm doing is I'm selling $1,000 design, teasing out the different packages, different options, starting to kind of loosely, based on patterns that we see things that they may be able to fit. Again, if they're certain ages and asset protection may match, we want to at least let them know it's maybe in the cards versus young families. And so I'm getting them in then to meet with Tracy or our other attorney, Jeff, for the design meeting. So now they're engaged. Our attorneys then are only working with paid clients. But then this helps also get us around the two elements of one in non-attorney sales. Who's making that decision of which package and how does that fit? We've fully removed from that then. And so when Tracy's meeting, they're engaged, and it also lowers that threshold of it's only $1,000 sale. We can still get them to a $7,000, $8,000 trust, but once they're meeting, we'll say with Tracy, are you guys going basic trust or even just will package all the way up through something more high end? She's now getting to design a good plan, but then also move into this still sales role, right? It's kind of like the upsell on the back end, but they come in every time. Like we pitch it, we get a lot of people go, oh, I can do $1,000. If I don't like you guys, I don't have to work with you. Thinking like 950 goes of this. I think we maybe had one person not ever do it. So it's close to a lock that they will. They come in, they're invested in time, but it keeps us from doing like some firms do, is that like hour and a half, 2 hour design meeting up front, where then an attorney might close 35% of them and go, that's a lot of time that you're not. So once they're coming in to meet with Tracy or Jeff, we do that. It's
So you're
worked really-
so you're selling for $1,000, you're selling basically a design meeting with the attorney. Okay. How do you pitch that?
come in, because you're not going to be able to, like, we just walk through that the process. It's just that we break it apart. So we when I go through the stack of deliverables you could get in the different packages, all the different documents, the types of planning, then we go process. We start with a design meeting. After that's done, we're going to move to the review, and then we have a signing. They go, great, like, how do we start moving forward? We move into the design next. It's 1,000. You don't have to have the commitment. Again, we get to play it against the other law firms. If you talk to anybody else, they're going to go on this call. Are you in for $5,000, $7,000, $10,000, $12,000? And I go, that's way too big of a commitment. How could you know that in 21 minutes? We just want to know, do you want to move into a design meeting or not? They're like, darn, you are right. That is too big of a commitment. Just come on in. Get us, we give them the questionnaire, we walk them through that, and then they can go see what their real needs are.
Real quick, anyone who's in attendance right now, there's a Q&A thing up in the screen. So if you have any questions, put them in there. We'll maybe answer them as we go along or at the end. But real quick, Andrew, what do they know the price? Are you telling them the full
Yes.
price of the estate
Yes.
plan then?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and I'm ranging in things that apply. So again, if it's a couple and they're 45 years old with some assets, we're not starting to put in nursing home. So we are using as a way to filter what might be the 2 or 3 options that might make sense. Again, not an attorney, so we're not saying what it should be. It's just, these are things that people in your shoes typically consider. And when you're in that meeting designing with your attorney, they will be able to get under the hood, move across across the table to a shoulder-to-shoulder decision with you and work with you. But then they know, hey, my upper limit might be a $6,400 trust today, or it's whatever it is. They're starting to get that in, so that we also kind of have the buy-in of, we're not having people come into that meeting angry, going, I thought this was going to be $1,500. How's it 7,000? No, they were fully aware, and then they can see the options. And when Tracy goes, hey, if you want to protect your home, there's this option from a nursing home. If you want a basic will and go through probate, you're all the way over here. You're in the driver's seat now. And they're looking at outcomes, right? We're not worried about what is the actual package difference. It's what outcome do you want for yourself and your family. Let that start to drive it, because then the value showcases, and it's worked really well.
The $1,000 that they pay for the design, is that just for the design, or does that get credited towards any plan that they end up utilizing?
Yes, it gets credited. So then the second payment's due after the design. So if it's a $7,000 plan, it's $1,000 at the conclusion of that meeting, and they go, yes, I want that $7,000 trust. Great, $6,000 more, and we will not do anything until we get the second payment.
Yeah, I like that.
I think just to add a little bit to that too, I think like we do kind of sell the entire plan during the consult. The expectation with the client is that they are working with us the full way. This is just breaking it up for them. So we're just saying we have the $1,000 because we don't know which plan you're ultimately going to be in. We want an attorney to make that decision of, do they need revocable trust, asset protection, maybe a simple will. So then they get a package from us after our consult call that has the 3 options. We have a couple different packages, and they each have 3 options. And so that's the $1,000 then with the balance due once we design their plan. So they're not
It's a little bit.
thinking it's just a design meeting, they're paying $1,000 for it. They're like understanding this is for the whole process. This is just like the first step. But then if they decide after the first step they don't like us, and like Drew said, that hasn't really happened, they could walk away.
Yeah, it's a little bit more confrontable for them, right? Hey, pay $1,000 right now rather than, $7,000, right?
We've kicked around dropping it to maybe even to the 400 to 500 range. Again, it's an even easier sale for a dragon. Like, that's all you're selling is a $450 product. Anybody can sell that. Let the attorney, once they're in, let the attorney sell the back end, build the trust as the professional. I think it's a good model.
Yeah. Our model right now is we have our intake girls. We have 3 of them. So all the leads come in through them. They do the questionnaire with them. Each service we do, primarily we're doing estate planning, probate, and Medicaid. Medicaid planning. And then right now, Ashley, as the attorney, is doing most of the estate planning consultations. We're trying to, the beginning of the year, we have a plan to kind of cut that back. But then for our probate and our Medicaid consultations, we have non-attorneys doing them. And they're all basing it. Ashley has given very specific parameters on what is, okay, if this situation, they need, this is what they would need. In this situation, this is what they need. Okay. For probate, these are the different types of probate, and this is the fees for them. So they're not ever giving legal advice. And we make that very clear that they're not an attorney. We say that up front. And yeah, so how have you guys navigated the not giving legal advice route? Yeah, sure. You, Gary, Tracy, any.
I think it comes from, again, married to Tracy, we have a lot of discussions. I have learned a lot, and I think it's more helpful to know a lot, because I think I've got a better idea of where the line is, so I can more easily stay on the correct side. I do think there's danger when it's like, I don't really know what the heck we do, and what would it be, and where are those lines. It's harder to avoid a line if you don't know where it is. We spend a lot of time talking about what would that line be, and how do you not go up to, let's not cross it. And a lot of it comes down to speaking generalities, lumping people together into patterns that we might see, things that we do see historically that aren't guarantees, but happen often for a certain demographic. And again, you can present that in a language where people can hear it and go, oh, well, that is me. That makes sense. That's what I would go do. We didn't tell you to go do that. We didn't say that's the package for you. We just said that's what happens often. There's some other things, and your attorney can go do that, but they start lining up going, oh, that makes sense. I like that. I'm building trust. That's the outcome I would want. They kind of walk themselves to a decision without me ever having to say this. I'm not practicing law. I don't have to say you will do this, or this is the right call. Tracy or Jeff will, but we can start presenting this. Look, we do 300 plans a year. People in your shoes do this often. There's a couple other options too. So we spend a lot of time understanding what could we say and exactly how to say it.
And I think too, because I was uncomfortable with it initially, but it just kind of naturally happened in the progression of our business. And I was nervous about like making sure that we were not skirting the line. And we had a lot of conversations about like, what part of this is actually legal advice? So like my recommendation for anyone that is a little bit uncomfortable or nervous about it is start really thinking about what actually is legal advice and what is maybe just giving a definition or something that anybody can talk about. Like explaining what an executor does isn't giving legal advice, but choosing maybe the specific type of plan that they need to be in, that is. So that's why we then broke up the packages like we do, because then the salesperson is not picking, oh, you need a revocable trust. We are still allowing that to be ultimately the attorney's decision.
Yeah. Gary, how have you found that to be kind of similar, or you guys handle it any differently?
Somewhat similar in that a lot of training for the Dragon, and the more formal your program can be, the better. So that it's when they're communicating to the PNC on their phone or Zoom call, they can just explain, this is our program. Once they sort into a particular practice area, we know we're in probate, for example. We have a probate pathway program, and they review the probate pathway with the prospective client. And basically, this is how we do probate. There's lots of attorneys that do probate, but we have a proprietary process for it. Does this work for you or not? And we set those expectations up front. California's fixed fee, statutory fees for probate. So it's really that all of our probate engagements are sold by the Dragon. Nobody meets with an attorney in probate. Like you either need it or you don't, right? I mean, somebody either died and they had assets, or they don't, and everything is pretty black and white in there. So probate's an easy one to get a full rep engagement from the Dragon. I mean, I think my guy's doing 80% plus. I mean, 90. We're doing really well with probate engagements. We're opening somewhere north of 7 a month. We have 68 open right now. With estate planning, I would say it's not that good, but it's pretty good. And it's all about having sort of pre-loaded questions and packages. And he can ask them questions and they answer. And that's, again, if he's not saying you need or you should or things like that, then, we know we're staying clear. And it just takes, an occasional audit. Like all those calls are recorded, the Zooms are recorded, and we watch. And in the beginning, there was a lot of onboarding and oversight to make sure that we were, staying clear of giving any legal advice. And so it works pretty well for estate planning. And our fallback is that, $375 strategy session. That's literally just a placeholder so that they actually show up, right? It's so that they have some skin in the game. We're not really trying to sell, a package. If somebody just wants to meet with an attorney and sort it out, or if the dragon doesn't, if he can't place them into a package because he's not sure, then fallback is the strategy session. So similar, I think a lot of my attorneys and partners were all skeptical of it. And we sort of explained, here's the process, here's the system, here's the onboarding, here's the training, and we're, reviewing calls and making sure. And now that we've been doing it for a while, it feels very normal. I would say too, when it was just me and maybe one other lawyer, it wasn't as critical. What's happened is now I don't do any legal production anymore. I'm just, managing the firm. So I'm completely removed from that. And as you start bringing in other lawyers, they will not sell as well as you sell. Because if you're the entrepreneur and you started it, you're going to be naturally better at it than somebody that you hire who is not entrepreneurial. Maybe, you can give them a sales program, you can give them an agenda. And I did, and I worked with him and I trained him. And I am moving aggressively away from attorney sales just because my attorneys are not good at it. Their conversion ratios are way less than mine. I was 85%. My attorneys range between 45 and 60. And that's after really working with them. It's just not their strength. They're really good lawyers, but also sales to me is a communication of the uniqueness of who we are and what we believe in and how we do business. None of that's legal advice, right? I mean, that's sharing the heart and soul of our firm. Why are we called Lawvex? And why is it not Gary's name? It's because we believe in our mission. We're trying to take the frustration out of people's legal experience. And this is how we do it. We live out our values, and our values are speed and compassion and billing transparency and education for you. All of that is well communicated by our dragon and horribly communicated by my attorney. They want to they're so hardwired. Like when they get into a meeting, they're just like, I just want to fix your problem. Let me just give you legal advice, and I don't blame them for that. I think it's just a reality. So to get that great communication of value up front and really, I call it unpeel the onion, from, well, why do you want to do this? What are your goals, right? And tell me about that. And then it's, that part of it is sharing deep value, understanding, and how we're a good fit for them or not. And that's okay too. So
Yeah. Ashley, were you concerned about having non-attorney salespeople?
Very. Yeah, it actually gave me a little bit of anxiety. I don't get anxious easy, but it gave me anxiety initially. I think mainly because I've seen this just all the time with people in general, and I'm sure all of us have experienced this, where just, regular people out there love to kind of give legal advice. So I feel like it's sort of an inclination built into people in general, mainly because they're trying to help. And it's not coming from like any point of ill will, but I think it's easy to very unintentionally cross that line. So it made me nervous, even with the more information that we gave them and the more training, that then they would feel more confident and, oh gosh, what if they say this or say that? But I think as time went on, and, you know, obviously there's mistakes that get made here and there, but it's just a constant listening to them and talking to them and pulling them aside. And like everyone's been saying, right, just really knowing what that line is. And it is one thing to very easily, I love this idea that Gary was saying, just kind of talking up the positive points of the practice and the firm. And he's right. You know, our non-attorney salespeople do that way better than any attorney would do. They're really into the mission. They want to sell the mission. So there's a lot of talk about that, which has nothing to do with legal advice. And then when you kind of get into this, the more they see, the more they're exposed to, the more training they have, it is much easier to say, you know, I don't know specifically what the attorney's going to want to do here, or if there's ever a question, they can come and ask me. But in this scenario, this is what we typically see. And as was stated with probate, it's super cut and dry here in Florida too. It's like you pass away with assets. If they're under a certain level, you can do this probate. But if they're over a certain level, you have to do that probate. It's not real difficult there, especially when one of the types of probate in Florida by statute doesn't even require an attorney. So it's much easier to kind of, I don't stress on the probate ones as much as I do estate planning, and Medicaid, of course. And Medicaid, I still haven't, you know, the ones that can become more technical and where people can ask a lot of questions, you know, that's where it's a struggle for me. But I think over time, I've gotten way more comfortable with it. And I agree. I think it works way better. I love having really good attorneys. And unfortunately, the best attorneys, the best drafters, the best reviewers, they stink at sales. Stink.
And yeah, you know, it's funny when we first started. So the reason we're having this whole meeting is to obviously help the people who are watching. We had reservations about doing it, and I think almost every attorney has reservations about doing this. But really, you know, it can be done properly. And the fact of the matter is you're not going to grow unless you have salespeople, and that's either an attorney or it's a non-attorney, right? You have to, it's a part of a business. You have to have sales. And the more that you grow, there's only so many, you know, hours in a day, right? Ashley can only do, right, on her end, she was doing 8 consults a day, and it was fucking killing her. And so it's like, okay, right now for us, 8 consults a day is not going to it's not going to make the bills for us, right? We have to make a lot more than 8 consults. So we have to add more people. So it's like, okay, you can add, where are you going to find a bunch of really good attorneys who are salespeople? You're probably not, right? That's the bottom line. Yeah. Anyway, have you guys had any like, well, Andrew, you're doing most of the sales, so you have your own, but Gary, was it pretty easy training up your non-attorney salesperson?
Medium. I mean, I think.
Did they come
from a good one?
Did they come from a sales background?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're a hybrid firm. We have physical office spaces, but all of my, you know, non-lawyers, legal assistants that work the front desk, but all my paralegals, my admin people, my intake coordinators, my non-attorney sales, they're all remote. So we were able to recruit nationwide. I think we interviewed 30 and second interviewed like around 8. And we took 2 into a practicum where we actually hired a sales consultant and we role played to see how they would do. We did it right. I mean, we were after it, invested heavily into it, but as a result, we got a really good guy. He had been in sales for a number of years, like around 11 years. and he was selling financial services, also remotely. So he loves sales. He is a sales guy. He can do those calls. He does 5, 6, 7 a day and just eats it for breakfast. He's the most positive person I've ever met. We all love him. And he's having a ball. I actually just met with him in person last weekend because I happened to be in Las Vegas where he lives. So yeah, we recruited hard for it. And I think it paid off. You know, if I would not want a middle kind of quality person doing that job. I want somebody who's, I mean, he has a bachelor's from UC Santa Barbara. He's got 11, 12 years of experience of sales, very smart guy, picked it up really quickly, and he just does an amazing job. He's a people person, right? And you can just tell. I mean, a lot of the basics of what I knew about sales, he already knew. He just needed to know what the products were really, and how to sort people. Once he started to, we used Slack for, inter-office communications. Like if you don't know, it's our own like kind of private Facebook chat or whatever with channels and everything. So that when he's taking calls, if he's live on a call, he could Slack me and be like, hey, what's this? And what do I say? What do I do? And that really, really helped. And I was very in tune with him when he started and did a lot of coaching that way. I still get probably one a day. And he's been with us for 2 years. And usually now it's like a question, hey, this PNC has this like it, which direction do I go? So that really helped too.
Yeah. Okay. So now the $1 million question is how to compensate salespeople. So I don't know if it's probably going to be a little bit different with you, Andrew, because you guys are
marry in. It's the easiest solution.
Yeah, that's the same thing with me, right?
More money and I make it, and then we're all happy.
I mean, I can tell you what we do. We pay a flat bonus for onboarding a client, right? And that's a very basic process, but we pay, and we pay decent salaries. For our intake team, we pay bonuses for qualified consultations completed, that they book a consultation, it gets completed. We pay them a small bonus for that. They book a lot of consultations, so they do get paid well. And then so that's what we're doing there. What about you, Gary?
Yeah, we have a base salary that is tied to a open matter per month number. That's the keep your job number. And then we bonus on top of that for, matters that are open. That's, client agreement signed, first payment made. And we just have, I have a yellow threshold, a green threshold, and a super green threshold. So we actually bonus him every month. I think bonuses should be fast. Like I think there's a lot of psychology associated with it. And so
we pay him by our paychecks are bi-weekly. We pay him bi-weekly. Our bonuses.
Yeah, it's just a little hassle to kind of do the tracking. And then we pay twice a month, but we bonus monthly. And it's a fixed amount, so it's not like a percentage. You don't want to get into paying a percentage of the fee, splitting fees with non-attorneys. So it's a flat amount per matter over top of the threshold base.
Yeah, the whole fee sharing thing has always got me, because it's like everyone is paid based off of legal fees, right? Everyone's salary, all of it is from legal fees. So what the hell? It's like, anyway, in my opinion, it's goofy, but it's a game that we have to make sure we comply with.
We also talked about doing kind of in between with you guys, where that could possibly be tied to increments in close rate or average client value. And so again, it's not tied to an individual, but hey, if you're closing at 35%, but if you get to 40 for a month, at 40, this comes, at 45, this comes. If ACV goes up, or even a metric, like a matrix of like ACV and close rate turning into like a grid and going, then it's not tied to an individual person, but clearly if they're getting better, could we reward it that way?
I like
I
that
like-
a lot, because
Yeah.
it really goes to, it's a benefit for people who are improving and doing better, and it's a nice thing to reward based on that. So there's a way to figure it out that's obviously not tied to percentages of fees or fee sharing in any way, which just doesn't sound like it is. That's the best way to pay people, because they're getting paid based off of production.
Yeah, we use Zoho, and inside of it, we can track sales closing percentage, and yeah, it does it all automatically. And I've been tinkering around with how to do it. I really like that idea, like a monthly thing. Okay, if your closing percentage for this month is X amount, I like that. I'm probably gonna have to use it.
And so I did that too, and I got away from it, the closing percentage. And the reason I did, I went to just simplicity, just, case open, regardless of the value. I was thinking like, boy, it'd be great to incentivize them to sell something bigger. But the problem was, the conversion ratio depends a lot on the quality of the lead. We have a marketing team, and those guys, their job is to deliver qualified leads to the intake and sales folks. And it set up an interesting dynamic there where, if you're bonusing on conversion percentage, what the sales guys are going to say is that the leads were bad. And then the marketing people are going to say, no, that was a good lead, right? And so at the end of the day, I kept it simple. I simplified it and just said, you know what? I don't really care. At the end of the day, you need to generate enough leads, and you guys got to close enough matters, because I'm looking for that open matter count to be able to feed my, all of my team. So I messed around with that conversion percentage thing, and then it got a little bit murky.
What about just giving an additional bonus if the percentage is a certain amount?
Well, if their conversion percentage goes up, they're going to open more matters, right? So I look at it just based on open matters. So
Yeah.
it also it's a little more work to track those. I mean, we do track the conversion percentages, but it again, it's a function of how many leads came in, and sometimes we're running a campaign and it wasn't stellar, and you just don't get as good of a quality lead. So that means you may have had a higher volume of leads and you had to sift through them, which would reduce the conversion percentage, but maybe you could still hit the matter goal. So I did try, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I just I had a bit of an interdepartmental conflict.
I understand. All right, so we have a decent amount of questions in here. The first one is, are your intake people hourly, and what do you pay them? Our intake people are hourly. They do get bonused pretty well, right? I explained that. We pay $5 per qualified consult scheduled and completed, right? And they're doing 25 30 consults a week, so they get up there, and we're paying them between 16 and I think maybe 22 an hour. Yeah, and they're working 40 hours a week. Anyway, I don't know if you guys want to input on that. Let's see here. Andrew, how do you overcome a local marketplace custom of the free consultation that may end up doing the basic design, unfortunately, with asking for $1,000 to come in initially for design? I'm not sure if I understand. How do you overcome that?
So I think what they're asking is, a lot of law firms in estate planning do this whole, come on and meet with the attorney and we'll design a plan. And what we have found is most of our clients have never worked with a law firm for estate planning. And they're like, second most haven't done this in decades. So that's usually like your own belief that we have found that like that's what you do and your competition does, but that person calling doesn't have that expectation. It's like going to a car dealership. If you had never bought a car, not talked to somebody who never bought a car, never saw on TV, what's the expectation of what that interaction should look like? You don't know. We only know once we've been through it.
And you know what, honestly, it's like, you look at the amount of education and training and money, how much school costs and all of that for an attorney. And you kind of look and you compare it to a doctor, right? It's not far off. Like, if I go to my doctor, I'm not getting a free consultation, right? Unless I maybe, I don't know, downtown in the ghetto somewhere maybe, but yeah. So anyway, yeah, I think you're right. It's kind of up in your, it's up in your own head where, yeah.
I would say with that one too, the only pushback we ever get is from a client that we had worked with maybe back when we started the firm and we weren't doing it this way. And so they did have this expectation of working with me. I was the one that was answering the calls and I was the one that was driving to their house in some situations, which is just stuff we don't do at all anymore. So that's really the only pushback that we get. And we've even learned how to navigate that. And so I think that's always a fear too with people, that if they change something, it's going to rock the boat everywhere. And I think all these new clients, they have no idea.
Right.
And then you may have to finesse the current clients and start moving them over and kind of more training them on the new process. But then once you kind of get them through that, then most of them are good.
Yeah, totally. This person says, how do you sell not meeting with an attorney? Our clients are calling and expecting to schedule a meeting with attorneys and willing to pay consultation fees. So I've noticed on that most of the people aren't necessarily expecting to meet with an attorney, at least initially, right? They're not, I don't think that's the expectation. We don't really hear people calling up and say, hey, I want to speak with the attorney. If they do, then we kind of handle it. Okay, yeah, you can schedule with the attorney. We'll consult fee or whatever. But our estate planning consults are with an attorney right now. We're making a change in January, but as of now, they've always been with Ashley. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Gary?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think, a lot of the beliefs around this are ours as the legal industry and not necessarily our clients. And I think it's also, as you're growing and trying to scale the firm, it's okay to set some boundaries and say, this is how we do it. And if that doesn't work for you, that's okay. You're not our client. And you can talk about sort of the benefits to them of having a non-attorney consultation is, one of our values in our firm is speed. We want to get you as much information as possible, as quickly as possible. We'll get you on a lot of times the same day. Right. If you call in the morning, we're going to have you talk, as quickly as possible. A lot of times it'll be, that afternoon or certainly the second day. And that's, I think people like that from a standpoint of, let me just sort it out. I don't know if because the vast majority of our leads are coming in, they have never worked with us before. Only around 15 to 20% of our new matters are repeat clients, just because we have a great referral program and we have a great marketing program. So, hey, let's just have a conversation. Talk with Aaron. It's a consultation. He's not a lawyer. And you can learn a lot about us and whether or not we're at least a preliminary fit for you. And you might be able to actually just make a decision right there. And if not, the fallback is you can meet with one of our lawyers in a consultation. There's a fee for that, but it's fully refundable fee. If you meet with our lawyer and you hate it, you think it was a waste of time, we'll just give you your money back. It's really a placeholder just to make sure you show up. So I think that conversation is 90% of the time it's enough. and people will do it.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, funny, I found in our firm, this happens a lot where they'll have and I love that. And it's a very similar conversation, especially if someone starts out talking to one of our non-attorney salespeople, and the person, even if they hedge at the beginning, which doesn't happen often at all. I agree that it's more our own thoughts on it than what other people are thinking. But even if we do get that slight hesitation, there's always this sort of communication, like, you know, no problem at all. Why don't we just we already have the appointment. Let's just kind of discuss it. There's no issue with me also getting you on with the attorney. We can book something on her calendar as well. And, you know, anytime that's ever happened, the end of every single consultation, the person is telling our non-attorney salesperson how much they enjoy talking to them, much more than any other attorney they ever talked to. How it was like, you know, such a great conversation, and they feel very well informed. They feel very confident and comfortable, and usually just want to move forward. They forgot about the attorney at that point. So I feel like a lot of times, whether it's our own, whatever we're putting on it, or even if it is someone else kind of giving that origination, it is so easily handled.
Yeah.
I'll say too, a lot of our people, they love that guy. I mean, they enjoy talking to him, actually. And I mean,
They will. A good salesperson, people will love they love them. They don't come off as sales. They don't come off as pushy. They're good communicators. Right.
I mean, just like take the 40,000 foot view for a second and go, why do we do this? Like, what's the whole point here? And for me, it's two things. Maybe three. Number one, I want people to understand the value of who we are and what our values are and why we would be a good fit for them and how we're different from other firms. And our sales guy does a fantastic job of that. Our attorney's not so good. Number two, I'm trying to protect my attorney's time. I don't want them to be wasting time with tire kickers. I want them to do legal work and get paid, and that helps them make more money. It helps them live out their, you know, professional and financial and, you know, personal goals, right? So that they're doing what they love. They're practicing law and giving legal advice. And probably number three is, like, I don't want to do it. You know, I did it for many years, and when you start growing and scaling, it can't be me, right? So I'm protecting my own time and making sure that we have a system and a process to that is actually now that we have that team for the last couple of years, you know, it's so much easier for me to add lawyers, add offices. I mean, because it's just, I've got the different gears in the motor are all spinning. And now the next thing, like, we're planning on hiring another non-attorney salesperson Q2. I'll have another intake coordinator in probably Q3 if we're hitting our matter goals going up. So now I can just grow, right?
Yeah. It's, you know, sales and marketing is an aspect of the business. Production is another aspect. And unfortunately, in the legal field, the attorney feels like they need to do both of them. And that's just not a model to grow. It just isn't. It's a model to be burnt out and stressed out and not make a lot of money and not have good products either. If you're all burnt out and you're doing consults all day and you're trying to do legal work at night and the weekends, your service isn't going to be good. Your products aren't going to be good. You're going to get bad reviews, no goodwill in the community. It's just it's really a recipe for contraction, not expansion. So one person asks, how does this translate to other practice areas like corporate law transactions? I don't really see how it's any different. I think probably the same model, right? You kind of just have the non-attorney salesperson outline, the process, and probably probably need to book with an attorney most likely for that, but probably charge for it and charge a bit higher rate than, I love what I love that you guys charge $1,000 for it. I think I wouldn't suggest going down lower.
The only thing I want to add to that, though, is what I've noticed myself, because I come from a business law background. It's almost impossible, I have found, on business consults in particular, or things to do with more corporate law oriented or business transactions. It's almost impossible not to be give you legal advice during the consultation. And oftentimes you can get into a scenario where you're giving so much legal advice, maybe it's on company formation or on, how to do certain things to meet certain licensing, that they might get all the advice and then not even hire you. So I do think that, at least, and we're kind of still doing this in our model now because we have another business attorney working with us. Most of the business consults do end up with her for a paid consultation. And that's just mainly to ensure we're not just simply giving away legal advice for free.
Yeah. Yeah. One person asked, where do we find good salespeople? We found our salespeople, we've kind of organically gotten them. But our intake people we found on Indeed. Interviewed a bunch of people, like Gary said. Is it the same thing? Yeah. Yeah, just job boards, and you just gotta probably interview a shit ton of them. I think every time we put out for an intake specialist, it was like, God, we get like 50 applicants. Yeah. And yeah, you just gotta weed through them. It's a pain in the ass. I'm doing it and I hate it, but yeah. How do you handle bonus structure for the non-attorney sales? We already discussed that. How do you have non-attorneys selling estate planning package without knowing what type of estate planning documents they should have? How do you ensure your fee quotes are accurate? We kind of already covered that, right?
The only thing I'll add that maybe didn't really come up today, though, is we're huge on proposals or scope of work. And they are very, how many meetings, the length of meetings, the entire process. It's our proven process. What makes us so unique. So if we have something go out of scope, we don't have to worry about it. It's a new fee. It's an add-on. And that gives us a lot of protection. It's not like we will do the estate planning things for you. It's like we'll have a meeting up to 90 minutes to design it. We will draft these types of documents and give you all these deliverables. We will review it with you over the phone or Zoom for 30 minutes. We do all these things. So if they want a fourth design meeting, we'll just keep adding it in. And I think that goes hand in hand with sales, is having a very tight scope of work.
That's good. That's smart.
Yeah, and I think you also too explained earlier, maybe they didn't hear this on the call. It isn't like the non-attorney salesperson is also going into depth and telling them what package they want, but there are the particular documents, and like we said earlier, you can define what an executor is. You can define what the word revocable means. These aren't things that are giving advice. They can just simply explain different things, and in general, with this type of assets or in this age group, this is what we're seeing a lot of people get, but they're not actually taking that added step that is done in the design meeting, at least in their instance, where that's where really the attorney's telling them the exact package that's going to be best for their needs.
Okay. Would you say, like, okay, for say an estate plan, if you were to explain to somebody, okay, are you trying to avoid probate? Right. And they're like, yes. And then the non-attorney salesperson is like, okay, well, you do that by setting up a trust. Is that what you would like? Right? That wouldn't be considered legal advice if you were to present it in that manner, would you?
It can be, because there's more than one way to avoid probate. So you got to work.
I know. I'm being very very cut and dry.
That's an option, maybe.
Yeah.
And we use a lot of just analogies and storytelling of more of what probate is. Like they'll come in like, I want a will because I want the creme de creme for my family. And you're like, awesome, that's great. Like, do you know what probate is? Right. So we get into all these definitions. What is probate? What is that process? What does the executor do? What would a trustee do? Revocable versus irrevocable, right? It's like we're regurgitating Wikipedia half the time, 2/3, and then listening to them and letting them talk. In that nature, they connect the dots. Oh my gosh. Wow. So if a will guarantees probate, basically, you showed me all this, and then you're saying sometimes people may use trust to avoid probate. And I'm thinking now I want to avoid probate. Maybe I'm interested in a trust. Like they draw those conclusions themselves. All we do is kind of present details, and they start figuring it all out. That's also then a good buyer because they have figured it out themselves.
Yeah. That's the best way to sell somebody.
In California, we don't do will-based plans. We just do trust-based plans. If you own real property in California, regardless of its value, you will have either a summary probate proceeding or you'll have a full probate proceeding. We went to a scaled fee model based on assets. So I wanted a black and white question that was not legal advice that our non-attorney sales guy could ask. And we wanted a model that matched the financial, horsepower of the prospective client. So in California, if you have, under a certain threshold, then summary probate, well, that's going to be the basic plan. It's still going to be a trust plan. If somebody doesn't own any real estate and they don't have, our other threshold is 184,500. If their total net worth is below 184.5, they're not a client for us. Just, go see somebody else. If you have real property, then it's just a scaled model depending on what your assets are. And so that way it's a black and white question. It's not legal advice. It's like, okay, well, total asset size, and then the fee goes up because as you have more assets, first of all, it's more value to them. Second of all, it's a little bit more work for us, and it's also more risk for us. So even if it isn't more work for us, if you have, $1 million in assets, well, we're going to charge you more. And so our fee scale is actually not based on complexity factors in the base. It's based on their asset sizes. And
I like that.
When they want to, if they have complexity factors like a special needs kid, a substance abuse kid, or something like that, those are bolt-ons that are additional fees. And then that way the non-attorney sales guy is very clear. It's very black and white. There's no analysis of any, legal conclusions. These are factual questions that he can ask. And then it's always with the caveat that when you meet with the attorney will ultimately put you into the right program, and the attorney may recommend some of these other things for you, but at least that way I've got the base, and when we're charging people really according to their asset sizes. So we moved away from, we used to charge based on the complexity for us, and we moved away from that because we were actually charging lower income, lower asset people probably too much, and we were probably charging higher asset people that were uncomplicated too little. So we have recently shifted, and I don't, it's only been going on for a while, so I don't have a lot of data on it. So I'll get back to you in 6 months and let you know how it goes.
With that threshold that you have, the 184,000, do you not do consults with people who are below that?
No. I mean, if their assets are less than 184.5 and they own no real estate at all, then we would not work with them.
So what does your intake people do? They refer them to another attorney?
Yeah, we have a Team 100 referral list. We'd send them to one of about 3 folks that are in our area that will work and do a will-based plan for people. With document technology and automation that we have today and the speed that we can go through, we're not selling paper anymore, right? I mean, at the end of the process, I can spit out a trust-based plan, a will-based plan, whatever. I could do all kinds of stuff during that time. And the ultimate deliverable, it is actually completely detached from really the cost. The cost is the attorney time and the staff time that's associated with it, right? So I love what Andrew said, like, hey, if you do more plan design meetings, cost goes up, right? That's because you have an additional cost associated with that, which is your attorney doing that meeting, your staff scheduling that meeting, and so on. So yeah, it's all of ours come with at least one plan design meeting, and then a draft review, and then the signing ceremony, and you've got a confirmation call in the middle. And that's what you get for the base fee, right? On top of that, if you want to do an out of office signing, or you want to add in, another complexity factor like special needs kids, we need another meeting, right? So you get a bolt on, and we're going to talk through the, all of the care plan for your special needs kid and the supplemental needs trust that we're going to add to the, to the estate plan. So not saying that ours is the best way, but I did wrestle with this for a few years, and I really came to the conclusion that we were probably charging lower net worth people too much, and we were probably charging high net worth people too little.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, we've been kicking around for the people who are lower in the unqualified range, having our intake specialist basically tell them what our fees are before booking any sort of consult, right? Hey, this is what our fees are. do you still want a consultation? Right. And probably 9 times out of 10, they're gonna be like, nope. But if they're like, yeah, then maybe we should. But that's an idea. That's still kind of kicking around. Anyway, one person said, once you establish the metric for a bonus, for which a bonus is received, how do you set the bonus rates? Ours is just arbitrary. I just looked at, okay, if you're booking 25, 30 consults in a week, for example, for our intake guys, if I pay them $5, right, it's a nice little weekly bonus. Yeah. All just kind of arbitrary, right? Yes, no. Gary, you had to look.
No, I mean, for me, like 2 things. One is everybody that works for us, we have conversations about what are your personal, financial, and professional goals, right? So I know where they're trying to get financially.
That's good.
And so I want that bonus to be, hey, you're going to make your ends meet. I don't want to have somebody working for me that can't pay their bills. So the base needs to cover it. The bonus is like, okay, now I'm doing better. And then if I really bonus in, I go to super green, then I'm doing great. So it will begin with a conversation with the employee and what they're trying to achieve. And then secondly, the other factor is I need to get the return on investment that I'm paying for them. So, I'm looking for minimum 10x on my sales guy, right? So, dude, if I'm paying you 120, your value on that needs to be like 1.2. And so I'll work backwards with my average case value and make sure that he's doing that. And yeah, so I use those 2 things as kind of like napkin math to make sure that I'm in the ballpark. But ultimately, it really, I want them to know, look, hey, if we win, you win, and you winning needs to be like, hey, you went home and took the family out to dinner or whatever.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Yeah. We pay our staff. Our payroll's high. Our payroll is very, very high. We pay our staff very well. We have very, very good staff, and we want them to stick around. But I haven't really broken it down like you just said. And I think that's a really, really good idea. Yeah. To make sure I understand, the meeting with Andrew is free, right? So the meeting with the non-attorney salesperson is free, and he's getting the PNC to agree to a 1K design meeting. That's right.
Yeah. Only thing I'll add that I don't know if I'm the only person that drives me nuts, and it's hard in this kind of stuff, is that we all define this stuff differently. It's what's the intake process? Like, we call it sales, it's what it is. It's intake, it's what's the consultation versus the design meeting. That stuff gets really hard when you're talking firm to firm, because I think everybody's kind of skittish on this topic and wants to avoid it. And it makes it hard in this industry because then it's very hard to discern, like, are we talking the same thing or not? I use such plain English when I talk to people about this to be like, this part of our process is what it looks like, this is how we handle it, this is the length, this is what we are accomplishing. What do you call it? But this is what it is. That's
I replied to some Facebook comment. I think you pointed it out. And it was like, someone was talking about a design meeting, and our design meeting is totally different than what most people are considering it. And so I answered this long answer, and Andrew's like, I think you guys are talking about 2 different things. All right, Andrew, can you go over, we should probably wrap up after this. We've been on for a little over an hour. Andrew, can you go over your 2-part process again real quick on how you sell parts 1 and 2?
Yeah. So our estate planning framework first is really, we used to do discovery, ask questions, get clarification. We used to move into what Myron Golden calls pre-indoctrination, teach them for a minute and kind of, not try to be the subject matter expert, but kind of give them some definitions and background, then move into asking for the sale, handling objections, close them. And recently started going to really just hanging in the discovery mode and letting them come up organically and using my pre-indoctrination script in smaller segments as appropriate against their questions, and then just asking for the sale and letting it be done. It sped up our close and whatever. So I say that because it's just the same framework. We're letting them know that we can do the entire thing, what types of packages would typically be available, and the costs of all of these, all the value, we build all the offers. But then to move forward, it's not $7,000 trust, $10,000 trust, $4,000 trust. It's $1,000 to design a plan, have the attorney really put eyes on the questionnaire and assets and titling and figure all out the nuance and all kinds of things we couldn't get into today, and I wouldn't be able to because I'm not an attorney, and go through all of that and work with you and partner, because then you've engaged the firm and you've built that relationship with us. But there's going to be then a next phase. At the end of that meeting, you're going to decide, and you may have options. Sometimes, if you want to do it more simple, we could do it this way. More complex, it could be this way. That one costs more. Do you want it? Some people say, I need all the bells and whistles. Sometimes people in their meeting with Tracy or Jeff go, no, I don't need that. So we're going to have that meeting. That's $1,000, and that gets applied to anything you do. Or if you choose to be done, that's all you're out, and you're going to have a plan. And I'll take it to LegalZoom for all we care. And it breaks down this like, okay, I guess I could do this. It's a much smaller investment. And then they're in there invested. They've done the questionnaire. They took time off work, and they came for an hour-and-a-half meeting or did the Zoom call with an attorney. Tracy and Jeff then get to go figure out all the stuff. And as many times I talk behind the scenes, my notes are like, I think this is what they're probably going towards. Sometimes my gut's right. And other times Tracy's like, totally wrong. It's a learning evolution, but that's why I'm not doing that. I'm just getting them into the design meeting. It's to show enough value for $1,000 and to move them in. And I think a big takeaway is you've got what it takes to do the work. You've got what you're charging, and you've got the value you show. And as long as they're in that order, you pretty much win. It's when you start getting out of order that this doesn't work. If you're charging more than the value you show, people don't do it. Or if it's your cost to facilitate is more than your cost to charge, it's a loss leader. You better have upsells on the back end. As long as they're in that order, you're okay. So that's a very easy sale. That's why we do it this way.
Hey, Andrew, can I ask a question? You said you'd only had like one person go through the plan design. So your conversion rate's like 99.99% from the plan design to full rep.
Correct.
What's your conversion for the $1,000 plan design? Do you know what the ratio is?
2 seconds. It is.
I'm pretty sure, if I'm thinking of the person you're thinking of, he did come back 2 years later after he fixed he had like a flood in his house, and then financial stuff happened, and I'm pretty sure he even came back, that guy.
So then technically $1,000, although that took a while. So my close rate last 12 months, rolling 4 quarters, is 43%. Last quarter was 45.8. This quarter I'm at 52, and I don't feel, if it stays, we're boosting prices. I feel like maybe I've had a couple of easier folks. I feel like this 52% is inflated, but my old was like mid 30s, and changing to this new framework that I mentioned did get me consistently into the 40s, which has been nice with a higher ACV. We're closing more people, and it's working, and at a higher dollar amount total. So when we look at it, but if this thing hangs high 40s into the 50s, then we'll have to have a spike, which for 2025 would be great.
Yeah, that's killer. That's awesome.
Yeah. So your conversion percentage, basically your sale is the $1,000 plan design. Yeah. Like our conversion percentage for full rep or on strategy session is significantly higher, but we lose a few at the strategy session. I think last time I looked, we were at somewhere north of 65% to convert either full rep with the dragon or strategy session with the attorney. We're probably 20% more, but then we'll lose a few in there. It might be worth doing some math, and like your fees are significantly higher than ours too. Like we're in Central California. Santa Barbara notwithstanding, but Central California is a completely different economic environment than LA or San Francisco, where most of our clients are million and under net worth. So if I were to do that in my geographic area, I would have a probably lower conversion percentage than you. But we found like that 375 is just appetizing enough, and it's fully refundable. Like we would just give it back. And so I'm always pushing for somewhere north of 70 to 80%. If somebody called us, right, and they went through the dragon conversation, I want 7 or 8 out of 10, to meet with us. I kind of err on the side of like, I'd rather meet with someone and have them come into our office, get the feel, talk to us, because most of those people, like once they go to strategy session, they're going to convert, and we'll pick them up. But yeah, it's not wrong to like go a little bit lower conversion percentage and a little bit higher fee, because you may end up actually better off financially to do less work for higher dollar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm a big proponent of that.
Yeah.
It is
for
a
sure.
mathematical, like, there's a perfect intersection. So we spend a lot of time though trying to track that, to go, hey, if ACV went high, which way is the best? And I spend a lot of time as a data junkie looking at this stuff and trying to fine tune what's the best answer. It's hard.
Well, and one other thing, it goes back to the brand promise of your firm. If your culture and your brand promise of the firm is high net worth, high end and stuff, then that needs to fit. And for us, I would say we're more middle class, where we are, unless we're over in Santa Barbara where everybody has, millions. But we're most of our clients, like I said, probably 80% of our estate plans are $1 million and under net worth.
Awesome. Well, it's been great. Thank you guys. Yeah, I don't know where Ashley went. I think she might have a consultation. I think she might have run out. I think someone's here. But yeah, it's been great. I'm sure it helped a lot of people. And yeah, I just want everyone to grow. There's plenty of business out there for all of us. And the better that we do, the more that we can help other attorneys and get them doing well, the better goodwill lawyers and law firms have, and kind of all comes full circle. So yeah, thank you guys for helping out and giving your input and advice, and go kill it in 2025. All right, guys, happy holidays.
Hey, thank you,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Thank you,
you.
Andrew,
All right.
Tracy.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, bye.